call the special meeting, our budget hearing to order at 5:02, and all board members are present. Mike Farnell is present via Zoom. Thank you for attending, we appreciate it. And we only do flag salute in the regular meetings, is that correct? I just want to make sure. Okay. Public input. We do have Jeff 2 times. I'm guessing this one and then the next one.
You can speak. Ready? Greetings, board and administration. My name is Jeff Estes, and I reside in Startup. Is it recording, Haley? Okay. And I'll speak at the regular board meeting as well. I was looking at Dan's presentation tonight, and I'm glad I'm not in his shoes. And I might suggest, if I could, perhaps maybe the board could consider temporarily suspending any contracts just until things look a little bit better fiscally. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Carrie, do you want to speak?
No, I thought we were deciding it.
Okay. No, you put yes, you have to speak now.
Oh, okay.
All right, Dan Mallory, you're up. Dave, could we possibly turn the fish tank off?
We can, but somebody zip tied a note on it that says don't unplug.
All right.
So are there fish in there, for eggs?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, go ahead and do it. I'll text.
Just that way our audio will be.
We just can't let it, I'll text them right now.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Sorry, Dan, to interrupt you, but I know that messes up audio.
All right, good evening, directors. Yes, as Ms. Goldner said, the purpose tonight is to go over our budget, the F-195 and F-195F outlook, as presented to you this evening, July the 22nd of 2024. I want to begin by recognizing someone in the audience. Becky Moore is here. Becky is a newest team member to the fiscal/HR team, who was an integral part of putting together our personnel plan as far as the budget is concerned. So we would not be where we are today without her assistance. I just wanted to recognize her, and she's here to help in answering questions if there does, it might come up. So anyway, I was asked to keep my comments more brief and to limit our time to 30 minutes tonight. So with that in mind, I will kind of quickly go through some of these slides to try to do that. So I will go ahead and skip the preface. There is a preface there which basically kind of outlined for you some of the challenges that we have had in the migration to the new cumulative software, which took place in February of this year. We are still working on that. We are learning some of the nuances and so forth of that, which has complicated the development of the budget this year, just purely from a mechanical perspective. The objectives, the next slide, the F-195 objectives for Fund 10, General Fund. We had 4 in no particular order: providing adequate resources to address student educational and social emotional needs, address growth-related challenges, specifically at this building, Sultan Elementary School, obtain new bargaining agreements for open employment contracts, and end the 24-25 fiscal year with an estimated fund balance of at least $1 million. So those were the 4 overriding objectives, again in no particular order. The next page talks about challenges. These are challenges not unique to Sultan, but to public education in general. Inflationary pressures for salaries and benefits, materials, supplies, and operating costs, or MSOC. Managing growth, aging facilities, and dealing with a reduction in our Department of Natural Resources, or DNR resources, versus some of the what I call them pre-COVID years back in 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18. Enrollment, just a summary of the enrollment that we have put in to drive state funding for this year. Transition to kindergarten 54, which is 3 sessions of 18. That's adding 2 sessions more than we had last year, and then sunsetting of a tuition-based preschool program here at this building. Traditional 1,913, that's 6 below what our AAFTE, or annual average FTE, was for 23-24. Our ALE programs, which is Sultan Virtual Academy and Sky Valley Options, 64.6 students. Running start at 10, dropout re-engagement at 11, for a grand total of 1998.6. So that's the different breakouts All those are put into what they call the F203 formula, which generates the amount of state resources that you'll receive for those number of corresponding students. The next page is just an excerpt out of the F-195. This is the budget and excess levy summary page. This is actually here. The long documents were given to you as well, the F-195 and F-195F, but just for brevity, I've chosen not to go into those. But this really gives you kind of the key points as far as what are contained in the various funds. You see general fund, associated student body fund, debt service fund, capital projects fund, and transportation vehicle fund. First goes over the anticipated revenues. Next goes over the appropriations or expenditures that are budgeted for each. And then they go through what are called other financing uses or transfers out, which is GL 536. And then basically it flows down and has your excess limit, that levy and so forth. Some of the slides will go into this in more detail, but that is the actual cover page from the F-195 that you were provided. Next slide, revenues, general fund, again, Fund 10. We refer to these all as different fund numbers. We have our federal grants, which would be things such as IDEAB, which is federal special education, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, etc. Just short of, just a little over $1.8 million. State general and special purpose, $33,131,656. And then of that, 394,000, just short of 395,000, that is for estimated payments from the Department of Natural Resources. That number was provided to us by DNR. Local levy and direct payments, $5,095,654. Other entities and school districts, $1.5 million. And other financing sources, capital projects, levy reimbursement to general fund for tech-related staffing, $272,876 for a grand total of $41,850,624 in anticipated revenues. Please stop me as I'm going along.
I just want to make a comment that on a couple slides before, you talked about the enrollment of 1913, which is 6 below. We set it very conservatively this year, so a staff would be built around a conservative number. Because we projected for growth this year, that was more robust than normal, so it was just a more conservative approach.
All right, next slide, please. So revenues, and we look at expenditures and transfers, again, speaking about general fund. Staffing, which we call our objects 2, 3, and 4. Those are certificated salaries, classified salaries, and related benefits. $32,976,954, which is approximately 79.2% of the total budget. MSOC, or material supplies and operating costs, again, are objects 5, 7, 8, and 9. There is no object 6, which is just a little over $8.5 million, $8,581,875, which is approximately 20.6% of the budget. And then transfers is about 0.2% at $97,480. This is for indebtedness, for our limited general obligation bond, which was taken out in 1920, which was the first round of the repairs on the middle school roof, for a total expenditures of $41,656,309. Next page. As part of the budget development and review process, we're required to do what's called an MSOC disclosure. This basically shows that the district is able to demonstrate that they will be expending material supplies and operating cost revenues in excess of the amount provided to them. And you can see our total MSOC allocation is $2,728,891, and we will be spending $3,457,100, or we will be spending $728,209 on material supplies and operating costs in excess of allocation. By this, the district has demonstrated and anticipates to have material supplies and operating cost expenditures in excess of allocation, the red font down below. So I'm required to provide that to you. If the situation were different, where the district was receiving more than it was expending, it would require a detailed plan on how those additional resources are going to improve the educational outcomes of students, but that is not our case, so we do not have to do that. General fund, Fund 10. So you have your revenues minus your expenditures, and what is left over is your fund balance. Minimum fund balance policy, GL 891, was rescinded earlier this year by the board for 24-25 from its 4% of prior year's expenditures to a fixed value of $1 million. The goal is to restore the 4% requirement for 25-26. Estimated ending fund balance for 8/31 of 2025 is $1,110,745. Net change in fund balance due to operations is just short of $195,000. So that means we will have $195,315 more in revenues than we'll have in expenditures for 24-25. Questions? That's general fund. Fund 10. Questions?
Questions, Marianne?
Not at this time.
Isaac? Michael?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, moving into Fund 20, which is our capital projects fund. Objectives, multiple objectives, again, in no particular order. Continue to fund ongoing technology, equipment, and staffing district-wide. Continued completion of projects identified in the current 2023-2026 capital projects levy. Impact fee collections funding for portable classrooms and restrooms. Property purchase, which was done earlier this year for a future elementary school. Cash flow management, current year LGO repayments, LGO is limited general obligation bonds. Sorry, I didn't have a breakdown on that. And 27 through 2031 payments, we have approximately $2 million in limited general obligation bonds that extend out past the current capital projects levy. Next slide is the summary of capital projects fund. Estimated revenues just north of $5 million, $5,087,231. Estimated expenditures $2.186 million. Transfers out for debt payments. Debt obligations are going to ramp up significantly, and we'll have 3 limited general obligation bonds. So there'll be total debt payments of just short of $980,000 this year, or next fiscal year, I should say. And the estimated ending fund balance 8/31 of 2025 would be just a little over $3.4 million, $3,421,209. And that is Fund 20. All right, moving on to Fund 40, Associated Student Body. Estimated revenues are just short of $300,000, $299,378. These are based on sheets that I received from ASB. I do not come up with these numbers. They give me sheets as far as anticipated revenues, anticipated expenditures, and then my job is just to input that information into the system and see what the net result is. So they are anticipating estimated revenues, again, just short of $300,000. Their estimated expenditures, $369,000, or just short of $370,000, which they're anticipating a loss, and I apologize if that doesn't show very well in the green, of negative $70,196. So they're anticipating a projected loss next year of just a little over $70,000. Ongoing challenges regarding cost of uniforms and officials are the primary factors for rising expenditures. More emphasis on fundraising is needed.
So that amount, is that something that the district steps in and makes up that deficit, or they just don't get to spend what they're?
Until such time as they have enough resources that will just draw down their fund balance. So no, previously the district has not, any help from general fund has been requested specifically by ASB as they've addressed the board. So there is no external assistance that is in there currently. Now, as we look at the 4-year projection, there is, where we're starting in years 2, 3, and 4, there will be a need for some outside funding. Where that is derived from is to be determined.
So in layman's term, would that mean kind of they have savings that they're using, so they're not really going to be 70,000 short, including their savings or their fund balance?
Their operating loss, which means next year's revenues, the difference between their revenues and expenditures, they will have
Right.
70,000 more in expenditures than they will have in revenue. But no, they will not have a negative fund balance overall.
Thank you.
And then Fund 90, which is our transportation vehicle fund. District will bring into service its first electric bus. This next year it was a grant awarded bus, so that will be happening. And then we do have, I did also establish budget capacity for a possible award of 11 electrified buses. There is an opportunity for us to go out and apply for and potentially become the recipient of. Again, nothing is known at this point, but we need to establish capacity. If we were to be awarded that, I have built into the budget $4.5 million in revenues and $4.5 million in expenditures so that we can take advantage of that, so you would not have to do a budget extension. We do not need to expend that. That is only if the revenues do materialize. The only fund that I didn't go out into specific slides is Fund 30, which is your debt service fund, but that's where we funnel all the payments for your debt, basically, come into that fund. It's essentially just a clearing fund. Monies come in, monies go out. Okay, the, next one, Kayla. There we go. All right, so that's what we call the budget, or the F-195, okay? The next thing is about 4, 5 years ago, Becky, how many years we've been doing the F? 4, 5-ish, maybe more. Time gets away from you, and COVID kind of happened there, and you kind of lost all track of time, but anyway. There is a requirement that we put out what is called a 4-year outlook. So it is an F-195F, and the F is a 4-year forecast, okay? So or a 4-year projection. These are some of the overall assumptions that are used as you build this. Student enrollment growth estimated 2% per year for years 2, 3, and 4. We've already talked about the enrollment projection for this upcoming year, so we're just talking about the 3 following years, years 2, 3, and 4. Assume Sultan Elementary School becomes ineligible for HP LAP funding in 25-26. Again, we do not know this for certain, but as our free and reduced percentage at this building continues to drop, there is a possibility that we may no longer be eligible to receive those funds. So for this analysis, that assumption is that would happen in 25-26, not next year, but the year thereafter. Inflation estimated to be 3% for years 2, 3, and 4. Limit salary and benefits growth to no more than IPD and what's called the implicit price deflator in years 2, 3, and 4. No change in state funding models and or external intervention. Okay, and we'll go into that a little bit more. And assumes no replacement of capital project levy when current expires at the end of 2026. Okay. Next page. Basically, this is just an Excel spreadsheet which kind of lays out all these different years. Again, this is in much more detail in the raw report, which you were also provided. But it goes through general fund up in the upper left for 24, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27, and 27, 28. And as we had talked about before, for 24, 25, the estimated ending is $1.1 million. Using the previously shared assumptions, if we go into 25, 26, our ending fund balance becomes slightly negative at negative $167,342. As it continues in 26, 27, and 27, 28, that deficit continues to grow to $1.2 million negative in 26, 27, and 27, 28, just short of negative $2.2 million. Capital projects fund is immediately to the right in the upper right-hand corner, and it goes through the same things. Ending fund balance, $3.4 million in 24, 25, $5.4 million in 25, 26, $5.6 million in 26, 27, and about 5.4. So it stays pretty consistent in years 2, 3, and 4 in capital projects. Fund 30, debt service fund, moving to the left in the center area. Again, this is just an inflow, outflow. Ending balance always comes back to the $127,750. You have inflows, you have outflows. There's no change. Okay, what comes in is what goes out. It's a clearing account. Fund 40 is associated student body, middle section to the right, 24, 25, $129,804. 25, 26, $105,442. 26, 27, $78,849. And 27, 28, just short of $50,000 at $49,959. Bottom left-hand corner, transportation vehicle fund, Fund 90, $457,500 in 24, 25. 25, 26 at $10,000, 26, 27 at $12,500, and 27, 28 at $15,000. We don't like to keep a lot of money in there. Again, you receive your allocation once per year and you buy buses with it. And then next year you receive an allocation and you buy buses with it. So you don't keep a lot of money in that account. Essentially, it's a clearing account.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
On the general fund,
Mhm.
where you look at 27, 28, basically starting out $1.2 million short.
Mm-hmm.
Is that due to, I see revenues are increased over the previous year and also expenditures, but is it mostly because of the SES not eligible for the high poverty? Like, what's the main driver for that?
That's part of it. As you can see to the revenues, there's a single asterisk. If you look at the legend down at the bottom, the single asterisk assumes that SES will not be eligible for HP LAP beginning 25, 26. That's about a $600,000 hit right there, where all of a sudden they're just, what was there the previous year is not there. But the related costs do not go away. The staff that were being funded with those proceeds, the supplies, the curriculum, things like that, those needs still exist. However, those resources, under this scenario, under this set of assumptions, would not be there.
I guess I'll just make a comment on it. When you look at that, I think our initial 4-year forecast looked very similar to that. I'm not a big fan of it, because I don't think the assumptions you put in it give you any realistic thing. Every yearly budget is truly a unique budget. We're not gonna have a budget where we're 2.2 million in the hole. But when you look out 4 years, you don't have any other way to look at it. But next year, the legislature will go into session. They will come out with some factors, and we will have a budget that builds up to 4%. And so the danger in not explaining that a little further is everybody leaves thinking, gosh, the district's gonna be 2.3 million in the hole 4 years from now. And I just personally, and I've said this all along, is every year is a unique year. We respond, if you look back at enrollment, we'll see it during business meeting, we were losing an average of, I think, 48 kids per year, and we survived. We adjusted is what we did. And so I don't mean to undermine what you're saying, Dan, but you're trying, when you do this, you're trying to put in factors that are based on today, and there's no way you can do that 4 years from now. Just no possible way.
Anyone else have any questions at this point before he goes on? Mary Ann?
No, I think, my question about that ASB loss of 70,000, he's already, you asked it first,
I see.
so.
Michael?
I'm happy.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Superintendent Chadwick is correct, is that there, again, I tried to preface this by saying, based on the assumptions that I shared at the beginning, these would be the resulting numbers, or what I feel to be reasonably reflective of the resulting numbers. If we change the underlying assumptions, then obviously the numbers will change as well. The reason I say this is that decisions based on this are certainly something much greater than what I have control over. Those will be vested in the superintendent and the board as far as making decisions, as far as additional cost-cutting measures, things such as that in subsequent years. My assumption is that we would continue forth, but that the revenues, again, that the costs are rising faster than the corresponding revenues are, which is driving a negative ending fund balance.
Let me one sec, Mike, I kind of honestly forgot you were there. Do you have any questions so far? Sorry.
The only comment that I had was, just in reviewing the numbers, it looks like it's the worst of the worst. It's all of the worst case scenarios that are stacking on top of each other. Is that correct, Dan? Pretty close?
Yeah, I would say, I'm not purposely trying to make it look the worst of the worst, Mike, but you're right. I mean, there's certainly things that could swing more favorably than what I've laid out in the assumptions. We could have greater enrollment growth. We could be able to look at additional reductions in salaries and benefits. We could look at, there are a number of variables that could go into that would improve these numbers, okay? There are two, I've talked with the ESD, there are two schools of thought, is that you can put forth, I certainly understand that the goal is for the board in 26 to get back to a 4%, which would be about $1.7 million. My point of saying this is, to do that, to get back to that level, is gonna take some significant, short of very robust growth in enrollment, is going to take some significant cost reduction to do that. And so that's just something, obviously, the board at that time would have to buy into to make that happen. So I'm certainly open to making changes as far as this document is concerned. However, I just want to be sure that everybody's on the same page, that we just can't magically change these numbers to where they all of a sudden are positive without the understanding that there may be some difficult decisions to be made to make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
But this forecast is updated every year, correct?
Correct. It's a rolling 4-year forecast.
Anything else, Mike?
All right. Nope, thank you. I'll go back on mute.
I won't forget you're there now.
Okay, just a couple more, and I'm not sure we're running out of time, but okay. Next one, I'm entitling this, and I've used this phrase before, a system problem, not a Sultan problem, or not just a Sultan problem. Currently, there are 6 districts in the state that are what are called binding conditions. This occurs when you cannot produce a budget showing an ending positive fund balance, okay? You can't, through your due diligence, say at the end of the day, once we get to the August of the subsequent year, that we're gonna be in the black, okay? Obviously, Marysville, our neighbor to the west, is the most well-known. Moses Lake is gonna be the east of the state poster child, and Marysville is the west of the state poster child for those unfortunate circumstances. Based on assumptions, the district is currently projected to go into a negative fund balance at the end of the 25-26 year, about $167,000. To meet the board's previously expressed desire to reinstate the 4% minimum fund balance policy would require combination of increased revenue and/or expenditure reduction of approximately $1.8 million for fiscal year 25-26. So that just kind of builds on what I just commented on, is that we're gonna need a combination. This is gonna take a combination of revenue enhancement and cost containment to get back to that point. Trend continues like we talked about in years 3 and 4. Public education, the new reality. Again, 3 pieces, 3-pronged approach: revenue enhancement, cost containment, and external factors. So we'll hit on these quickly. Revenue enhancement, continued enrollment growth. Increased efforts to retain resident students could be another area that we look at. Grants expansion, federal and state grants. Local or other entities have done an excellent job this year in securing funding from outside entities, much more successfully than in years past. Build and maintain partnerships, our SSA program with Snohomish County, working with neighboring districts cooperatively. And then we are not too far in the distant future of looking at our replacement for our general fund levy, which would be years 27 through 30. So we're not that far in the distance of having to start thinking about that. Well, those will all be things that would generate more revenue. Okay. Cost containment, keeping costs down. Material supplies and operating costs, or MSOC. Excuse me. Inflation is starting to come down. Okay, it's come down from its high point of almost 10% down to where it's getting closer to the Fed target of 2%. Fed has signaled that they are looking at doing a rate cut in September, so that's positive news. But again, cost of goods and services, insurance is a big one. Energy, those are all ones that are not only affect everyday citizens, but affect us as a public entity. And employee costs, wages, and benefits. External factors, the third part of this equation, state intervention. Current prototypical school model does not adequately address student and operational needs. We've talked about this. This is not new. This has been a topic that's been talked about for a decade or more, okay? Implement a statewide salary schedule and related bargaining for all classifications. I believe would help, okay? Is that currently we have individual districts that are essentially trying to compete with each other instead of just having a level playing field for everyone. So I think having a level playing field on the state level would be a significant aid. Number of districts going to binding conditions expected to increase dramatically over the next 3 years. So it's not just going to be Marysville, and it's not just going to be Moses Lake, it's going to be others that you hear about. System is at risk of collapse unless corrective action occurs. I firmly believe that. I believe that we are, as a system, heading in the wrong direction. That there needs to be, and it's going to take some external intervention. Summary, total fund balance has dropped 73.5% since 18-19, which was the McCleary year. Heard that a lot. You know, we got the one-time money from McCleary to catch up and fully fund basic education and all that sort of stuff. Our fund balance has dropped almost 3/4 since then, 73.5%. So it's on a definite downward trend. Now, COVID and the one-time monies that we received from the federal government and state government essentially just postponed this, okay? This has been in the works for quite some time, and the COVID monies basically kind of postponed this current situation we find ourselves in. Elevated implicit price deflator, or IPD, since COVID has negatively affected fund balance, and that not all staff are funded, yet the expectation is that all will receive, okay? Annual reductions in staff costs and material supplies, operating costs will be necessary unless funding model changes and related safeguards are put in place. Inflation will continue to put pressure on MSOC budgets, not as much, but it still is out there. Elementary growth will soon begin affecting operations at the middle school and high school. Obviously, we've seen it here, because kids are getting older and they're aging out of this building. They'll move into our middle school, they'll move on to our high school, and then those challenges will not only be restricted just to Sultan Elementary School, but will be shared by the middle school and the high school both. Aging facilities continues to be costly to repair and maintain, and unfortunately there is no real quick and easy fix. So, I'm 1 minute over.
Great. Mike, do you have any questions or comments? No?
No, not at this time.
Michael?
No.
Isaac?
No.
Marianne?
I want to talk to Dan more after tonight on binding conditions,
Okay.
what that means.
Okay.
Thank you.
And again, that's not a concern for next year. Okay? I just want to be clear that the budget that you'll be approving in August will not have that as an eventuality. We're looking at least at year 2 or beyond for that to be.
We will not let ourselves get in that position that the other two I have no questions besides one that I've already asked and that we've talked about already, so, thank you.
Yes, so I will have, come back and have the actual formal budget adoption, which is a business meeting in August. We have not yet had ESD review of the budget. As I mentioned kind of in my preface, we're awaiting ESD review of the budget, so there may be some adjustments that are necessary based on their review. I do not know yet, that has not been completed. Basically awaiting that. So the budget that I bring you in August may differ slightly than what you have tonight, based on needs to make any adjustments.
Okay.
Okay.
And then if you guys have any questions in the meantime, always, you can email him and ask, or call him and ask.
Can I ask one question regarding the enrollment projections used to build this budget?
Mhm.
Is the number consistent with what Flow Analytics did?
We did not formally use their work as part of that projection, no.
Thank
It was
you.
more of a long-term, we backed off quite a bit
Okay.
on this one. So we projected about 80 growth, is that what it was, something like that? Between June and September, there was a regression. From September to June, we grew by 35 students. So we actually set an enrollment budget building number that's less than we ended with, just because projecting growth has not worked very well.
We grew more at the end than we ever thought we would.
I mean, we were
so-
enrolling new students in June, which usually, it doesn't happen. It's just because there's so many kids out there that, but it's also a transient area. Kids come and going all the time, you know? So-
Yeah, the enrollment forecast is brought forth usually in February, is when we talk about that, so obviously you have several count months still to happen through June, and that's what's shared. Yes, we actually stayed consistent or even ticked up slightly, which is a little atypical. So the number that was used based on the annual average FTE of 1913 is actually 6 below where we ended the year at, so it's a pretty, fairly conservative.
And there's been years when you look back in enrollment history where we've grown by 80 or 100, and we didn't have the building we have going on out there right now. So it's really a difficult thing to project.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
The board will be going into executive session for a bit. 5:45, 5:50, what do we think?
So if you go in at 5:40, come out at 5:50,
Let's go, I say let's go in at, let's say 5:38,
okay?
because that gives us a couple more minutes. And then out at 5:50. So, sorry, that means everybody has to go outside. At least it's not raining and it's not really hot. And then we will let you guys know as soon as you can come back inside. I'm gonna call.
Anybody else on this Zoom right
No, there's, and I would have to let them, they try to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, ouch. Oh, do you wanna put this back up on?
Wait, if you shut the door, we're not here.
now? Dave left his phone behind.
And Isaac bailed, so.